Let me tell you a story that starts with the roar of a tractor and ends with one of the most humiliating HOA downfalls you could ever imagine. Picture this. It's the middle of harvest season. The sun is blazing, the air smells like fresh soil, and I'm out in the fields working long hours to bring in the crops. Every farmer knows this time of year is crucial. Every second counts. Delay even a day, and you could lose an entire season's worth of work. But while I was focused on the land, someone else was focused on me. And not in a good way. That someone was none other than Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of our local HOA. Now, let me explain. I don't live in a fancy suburb. My house sits right on the edge of a large farming community. My family's been here for generations, and I manage several hundred acres of farmland. But here's the twist. Most of that land? I don't technically own it. I lease it to the state under a long-term agricultural agreement. That means while I farm it, the land is officially under state protection and used for food supply programs. Basically, I'm not just farming for myself, I'm farming for the entire community. But Karen, she didn't know that. Her HOA covered a little cluster of houses nearby. And recently, she got it in her head that my tractor, which I had parked near the road one evening after a long harvest day, was somehow ruining the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I'll never forget how it started. I was wiping the sweat off my face, sipping from a water jug, when I heard a sharp voice behind me. "Excuse me. You can't park that thing here." I turned, and there she was, Karen. Sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard in hand like she was auditioning for the role of traffic police. "Ma'am, this is a tractor. I just finished harvesting that field," I replied calmly. She crossed her arms. "I don't care what it is. It's an eyesore. Our HOA rules clearly state that heavy machinery cannot be left on the street." I had to bite back a laugh. "This isn't your street. This is farmland. Land that I work on every day." But Karen wasn't listening. She jabbed her finger at me. "I'm giving you 24 hours to move it, or I'll have it towed. Consider this your only warning." I thought she was bluffing. Who tows a tractor, right? But sure enough, the next day I came back from the far end of the fields and my tractor was gone. For a second, I thought I was losing my mind. A tractor isn't exactly easy to steal. Then I saw the little note taped to my gate. "Your vehicle has been impounded by order of the HOA." I was furious. This wasn't just a car, this was my livelihood. Without that tractor, harvesting was going to be nearly impossible. I immediately called the towing company, and they confirmed it. Karen had hired them, using HOA funds, to haul away my tractor and store it at their impound lot. The problem was, I didn't have days to waste. Crops don't wait for HOA rules. They rot. So I drove straight to the HOA office, and there she was again, sitting at her desk like a queen on her throne. "You can't just tow a farmer's tractor," I shouted as I stormed in. Karen smirked. "Actually, I can. Section 5, Article 9 of our neighborhood covenant clearly allows us to remove any unauthorized vehicles." I leaned across her desk. "That's not a vehicle, it's farm equipment. And you don't even have jurisdiction over that land." She didn't flinch. "Then maybe you should stop leaving your toys lying around where people can see them. It lowers property values." I clenched my fists. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. Karen wanted to prove she had power, even if it meant sabotaging my work. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. See, Karen had no idea who she was messing with. That farmland she thought she could control? Like I said earlier, it's not mine. It belongs to the state. And because I lease it under a government program, the land is considered protected agricultural property. That means interfering with my work isn't just annoying, it's illegal. So I made a couple of phone calls. First, to the Department of Agriculture. Then, to the sheriff's office. And finally, to the state official who oversees the land leases. By the next morning, a convoy of government trucks pulled up right outside Karen's precious HOA office. Karen came strutting out, ready to argue again, when she froze at the sight. State officials, sheriffs, clipboards, badges. One of the officers turned to me. "You're the leaseholder, correct?" "Yes, sir," I said. "All right. We'll be taking it from here." They marched straight up to Karen, who was already sputtering. "What's going on? You can't just barge in here." The sheriff pulled out the paperwork. "Ma'am, you're being investigated for unauthorized towing of agricultural equipment on protected land. That's a serious offense." Her jaw dropped. "Protected? What are you talking about?" "It was parked on my street." The state official cut in. "Actually, that land doesn't belong to you. It's under state lease for farming purposes. You had no authority to remove the tractor. What you did qualifies as interference with state operations." Karen went pale. To make matters worse, the towing company showed up too. Turns out, they weren't happy either. Karen had lied to them, claiming she had the right to tow my tractor. Now they were stuck in the middle of a legal mess. So not only was Karen facing fines, but the HOA itself was under investigation for misuse of funds. And me. I got my tractor back within the hour, delivered free of charge, with an apology from the towing company. You'd think Karen would have learned her lesson. But nope. A week later, she tried to file a complaint claiming my harvest dust was polluting the neighborhood air. This time, though, no one listened. The HOA board, embarrassed and tired of cleaning up her mess, voted to strip her of her presidency. She went from queen bee to just another neighbor overnight. Meanwhile, I kept working the land. Harvest season was saved, and thanks to the attention the incident got, the state even extended my lease for another 15 years. The best part? Every time Karen drives past my fields now, she has to look at the very tractor she tried to tow. Still working, still running, still mine. So what's the takeaway here? It's simple. Never underestimate the importance of someone's work. Karen thought she was protecting her property values, but all she really did was show her ignorance. Farming isn't just a hobby, it's the backbone of our community, the reason food ends up on every table. Without farmers, without tractors, without long days in the sun, there wouldn't be neighborhoods to brag about or lawns to manicure. And power. Real power doesn't come from barking orders, flashing a clipboard, or quoting HOA bylaws nobody else cares about. Real power comes from respect. Respect for the people who work hard, who contribute, who make life better for everyone. It comes from knowing when to step back, when to listen, and when to admit you're wrong. Karen thought she had control. She thought she could bully her way into getting what she wanted. But in the end, the only thing she managed to harvest was her own humiliation. Because here's the truth. Titles fade, rules change, and false authority eventually crumbles. But hard work, integrity, the sweat of honest labor, that's what really lasts. That's what truly matters.